Hey, it's Bro from Peachwolves. I assume you already watched the part 1 of this video, which is making the 3D for this website by my colleague Santi. In this video, I'll show you how to make UI for this agency slash portfolio website. It's going to be really easy and it shouldn't take that long. So let's not waste any more time and let's dive in. Okay, let's start with our static elements such as Navbar, the footer, or even the socials that I will place in the middle right. So let's go ahead and start with our Navbar. To do that, let's go place a block and let's go with a column. Let's go ahead and delete these blocks inside and let's place the column inside the block. And now let's call this Navbar. There you go. And let's call this a wrapper. Now let's go ahead and add display option to our navbar, and all we have to do is basically center it. And for this one, let's go ahead and add maximum width, and let's make it 1440. And our navbar is basically set. Now let's go ahead and add logo here. Instead of adding a image logo or like SVG or PNG, I'm just gonna put a text logo, so you can go ahead and put your PNG or SVG logo inside. To do that, let's go with a block and a text. Let's place this text inside the block and let's put this block inside the wrapper. Now, let's go ahead and remove the minimum width, and let's remove the minimum width from this one as well. Let's go remove the paddings here, and there we go. Let's change the color to white so we can see it better. And let's make it passion, maybe agency. And let's create a text span here. To do that, select your text and you'll see options below. Let's make it bold first and then let's fix it back because we don't want it to be bold. Now let's go back to our main text and let's change the font to this custom font that I have. And I will make this one kind of like a dark gray, and or even let's make it white and let's play around with the opacity here. And there we go. Let's go ahead and make this I italic as well. So to do that, let's go with the italic, but it looks off, so I will go with the italic font that I have, so it's more aligned. Now let's go ahead and change the size to 18. Let's remove the width from this block as well, and there we go. We are all set with the logo. Now let's go ahead and copy paste this block, and before we do that, let's change the wrapper of distribute option to space between and center it. Now let's turn this into a button. So first off, let's put it block. Let's copy paste this. Let's make this one work. And for the next one, we can make it careers. And there we go. Or let's add a display option to this. Let's make it flex and let's change the direction. And let's set it to center and let's make the gap 10 pixel. There we go. We are all set with the Navbar except the positioning. To set the positioning, let's make it fixed and let's make it 0 from top. Now we are set with the navbar here. Okay, let's switch to the footer now. Let's copy paste this navbar since we don't want to make the footer from scratch. Let's move the positioning margin to bottom. I want this footer to be fixed, so it's just gonna be two texts here. So let's call this scroll to explore. Let's go ahead and delete two of these texts and let's make this made with Peachwolves. But for the Peachwolves text, let's make it italic. There we go. Now let's go ahead and add a audio button to the footer here. So to do that, let's go to media and you will see an option called audio. And let's go ahead and add a block here as well. So let's move this audio inside the block. Let's remove the width and maximum or minimum height. And let's move this block next to this text. Remove the fill. And let's go ahead and remove the padding here. Let's set the width and height to 48 pixel, same as this one. And let's change the radius to 999 or even more. This will give us a nice round shape. So let's go ahead and add border. Let's make it off-white or like grayish. And there we go. Let's change the audio waveform color to white as well, or even something off-white. And let's make it brighter. Or instead of 48, let's make it like 40. And let's do the same stuff for this one too. And that looks good. Now, since we are all set with the footer as well, let's move on to socials here. But first, let's call this a footer. Now, let's add a block here. And let's add one more block. Let's put this inside this one. Let's remove every single value here. Let's change the positioning to fixed. And from top, let's make it 45. So it's like perfectly centered. And let's change the right value to 0. Now let's stick to the right. Let's remove the minimum height from the inside block. And let's remove every single value from this one too. And let's go ahead and add a image here, or icon. So I have these ones here. For example, let's go with the LinkedIn. And let's move this inside. And let's get rid of the height and let's set this to 20 pixels. Now, since I have the LinkedIn, let's go copy paste these ones. Let's change the direction to vertical and let's change the gap to 24. But it's stick to the right too much, so we can add like padding here. So like, how about like 24 pixel right padding? Looks good. Now let's change this icon to maybe Twitter and this one to maybe Dribble. And there we go. We are all set with the static items. Let's call this socials and let's move on to our titles or the main ones. So first off, let's go ahead and add a block here and then text. Let's move this text inside and let's remove the values here and let's set this to fixed and let's set this to 15 dvh from bottom, 6 dvw from left. So let's make the text white first so we can see what we're working with. And let's go ahead and call this maybe design. Let's change the font here. Let's change the font to this regular font that I have. But for the size, let's go with something different. So let's put the size to 9. And let's change this pixel option to dynamic viewport width, or DVW for short. Looks good. Let's change the line height to 5 dvh. And we are all set, except we can make this I italic again. And there we go. Our first text is ready. Now let's copy paste this text. Let's call this maybe width and let's make this italic again. But this time, let's go ahead and change the positioning to relative and change the left offset to 20 dvw. So it will give us this beautiful effect. But this time, let's change the line height to dvw. So here we go. Let's copy paste this one again. And this time, let's call this passion. And let's make this italic again. And there we go. Now let's set this to 38 dBW from left. And we are all set, except the naming of the file. So let's call this main title. And here's our first title. Now let's move on to the second one. But instead of making it from scratch again, so let's copy paste this one. And let's hide this. Let's call this section 2. And there we go. This time, let's remove the bottom positioning to top. So it's aligned to the top. And let's go ahead and remove the positioning here. And let's do the same for this one too. Let's change the text here. Let's make the third one a button. So let's call it read more. Now it looks like a mess. So let's fix it. First off, let's change the size to maybe 5. And line to 4.5 maybe. And let's move this down. There we go. For this text, let's make it 1 and let's change the line height to 1.3 and let's add like a maximum width to this one and let's do the same steps for this. There we go. Let's remove the width and let's go ahead and add a block here since I want to add like a icon next to the read more button. Let's move this inside and there we go. Let's remove the values here and I have this icon or like a box, so change the option to horizontal and there we go. We are all set with the text here. Now let's go ahead and hide this one and let's copy paste it again. Let's make it visible. Let's call it section 3 and let's move the top positioning to bottom. Let's change the text here. There we go. Our second title is set and let's go ahead and remove this one. Let's change the maximum width to 400 and there we go. We are set with the section 3 as well. Now let's move on to the next one. But for this one, it's gonna be on top and I want a block here or like a button here. So for this, let's go ahead and copy paste this section 2. Let's move this down and let's call it section 4. Let's change the text here. There we go. We are all set. Now let's go ahead and add like a margin to this button. Let's make it 20. And this is all set as well. So let's go ahead and hide this one. And let's copy paste the section 3 now. Let's make it visible. Let's call this section 5. And let's change the text here. And we are all set with the section 5 as well. So let's move on to our last section, which is the end title, we will call. And let's go with something with the button. So let's copy paste a 4. And let's call this end title 6. And there we go. Let's move this down. I don't want it to stay up top. And let's change the text here. So for that, let's go ahead and make this 3D web. And maybe we can make this one is here. And for the sizing, let's go with 9 dVW for the top one. And let's do the same for bottom one as well. And let's go ahead and add positioning value to this one. And let's make it 20 dVW. For the button here, let's go change the text here. Build your 3D site. And there we go. Let's set the spacing margin to -5 dVW here. And there we go. It looks beautiful. Let's make this visible. All we have to do now is basically set the anchor points. So for that, let's go ahead and add a block here. And let's call this anchor. Let's move this top. Since we have 6 sections here, let's change the height to 600 dVH for this one. Let's go ahead and remove the width and minimum height. Let's remove the paddings here. And there we go. So this is our main block here. Now let's go with a normal block and let's move this inside. Let's call this 1 and let's remove the width and minimum height and every single value here. And let's change the height to 100 dVH. And let's go ahead and add 20 width to our main anchor. So this one will be our first main title trigger. So let's go ahead and add like a color to this one so we can see better. And now let's change the positioning to absolute. And let's change the top margin or top positioning to 0%. Actually, let's remove the width here and let's make this one 620. And let's add the width to this one so we can see it better. Now let's add scroll section to this one and let's call it 1. Now we are all set with the first duration. So let's copy paste this and let's call it 2. Let's change the scroll section to 2 and let's change the positioning to 18%. So it's here. And now we are all set with this one too. Let's copy paste this again. Let's call it 3 and let's change the scroll section to 3. But instead this time, let's go with 38. And since we are set with the third one too, make the fourth to follow the same steps. And let's move on to 5. Let's make this one 5. Let's make this 78. And there we go. And this is our last one. And instead of making it 98, let's make this 97. And let's call this 6. Now we are all set. Let's go ahead and remove the colors and the width here. And there we go. Now all we have to do is basically set the scroll animations for the sections here. So let's start with the main title and let's go to effects. For this one, let's go with the trigger section and view and let's make it 1. For the preset, let's make it fade in and let's remove the enter. And we are all set with the first one. Let's move on to the second and let's add scroll animation. Let's set it to 2 and let's change the preset to fade in. And we don't have to play around with the enter and exit animations. Let's keep it same. And let's move on to the third one. Do the same steps. And for the last one, we do the same steps. There we go. We are all set. So now let's go ahead and preview this website. See if it's working. So this is our first text or the first title. And these seems to be working. Let's scroll down. This is working. And this one's working too. This one was working perfectly fine. And the last text is not appearing because we didn't set the 6th anchor to the correct height. So it needs to be 120 since we set the anchor points or the main block to 620. It's not matching. So let's go ahead and check it out. Let's scroll down. This is working. This is working. And here we go. Here is our final result. Now all we have to do is go on and publish this website. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more tutorials coming up. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.